If you're looking for a low-power magnified optic for a modern sporting rifle, or possibly even a shotgun or a hunting rifle, and you want to have good image quality and you want to keep it on a nice budget, take a look at this guy, the Marksman P330B by Monstrum. This is a 3-power magnified prismatic sight. Now, if you're not familiar with prismatic sights, a good way of thinking about them is almost like a fixed power traditional rifle scope, however in a smaller package. And the way it does that is it replaces some of the lenses that you would have in the middle. It replaces it with a prism. So this is very similar to almost like binoculars, but instead of having 2 barrels, you only have one here. So starting in the back, you have your fast focus eyepiece, and this would be the first thing that you set before you'd make any other adjustments. The way you would set it is look at something bright, and you want to adjust the focus ring until the dot and the circle around it, or the reticle, is going to be crystal clear for you, and it might take a few attempts. You definitely, especially if you're younger, you definitely don't want to just hold it and make the adjustments, but what you would want to do is actually close the eye and then come back and see if it's actually there or not. The reason why, if you have good vision, what ends up happening is your eye is going to compensate for a focus not being perfectly in the center. So do take a look at that after you have mounted it to your gun. Now, as a prismatic sight, you do also have a illumination on here. Some optics have it, some optics do not. You definitely do get illumination here. And here you have 5 settings of both green and 5 settings of red illumination. If you're colorblind, you have issues seeing a particular color, well, you do have 2 on here. Personally, I prefer the green. However, I can totally understand if people do like the red. The green for me is just a little bit quicker to pick up. Do note though that if you have it in the brightest settings, there is almost a little bit of a green or a red hue that gets put on the picture if you have it a little bit too bright. Outside, you're not going to notice it as much. And with another Monstrum, I didn't actually notice it on there, so something possibly with just the design of the scope. Moving forward, you have your windage and elevation dials, and once you have the scope mounted, you do want to zero it and then just unscrew these caps, and then you can just make the adjustments. You do have flathead screwdriver slots here, so use a flathead screwdriver, or you can also use the rim of a cartridge, or even if you have a coin, it'll fit right in there. Generally, these are made to be a set it and forget it proposition, so once you dial it in, you'd cover the scope caps. This would also prevent moisture from getting in, and you're going to be good to go. So functionally, it's going to be very similar to the S330. However, this guy, it does look a little bit more modern. It's a little bit more compact, a little bit shorter. Definitely looks cooler. Image quality on here is actually pretty good. I am very much surprised for the price that you're paying for this. Do keep in mind that because you don't have any sorts of range-finding reticles in here, this is going to be good. Let's say, for example, if you're going to center it on a 223 AR, if you have it sighted in at 50, well, that is also going to be good for 200 yards as well, and it's going to be just a little bit high at 100 yards. You probably wouldn't want to use this past 300 yards or so, simply because there's no way of compensating for the bullet drop, and then you'd have to adjust with the turrets, but they're not necessarily made for that. If you're going to be shooting at further distances, you probably would want to get either a different prismatic sight which has a range-finding reticle in it, or just using a magnified optic like a rifle scope instead. The other thing to note is that with these, with prismatic sights, much like with binoculars, you are going to need to keep it closer to your eye, even though here, interestingly, you do get still about 3.5 inches of eye relief. Some scopes you can get out to 4 inches or even a little bit more. However, I still wouldn't necessarily recommend putting these on a larger magnum size cartridge. So let's, for example, 300 Win Mag, because very simply, a lot of new shooters, boom, from the recoil, it'll end up going in their eye, and you're going to get scope bite. Definitely not something that's fun or not something that's recommended. Once again, the big advantage of using this versus a red dot is that you do have magnification on here, and also if you have any type of eyesight issues, such as astigmatism, a dot would end up getting starbursting and would get much, much bigger. You wouldn't be able to get a good focus on the dot, versus here you have the reticle etched onto the glass, and it's there, much like a fixed power rifle scope. So if you're looking for low magnification in a compact package that's going to be built quite well, take a look at this guy. This is the P330B by Monstrum.